Well, the legislation, like all legislation, was proposed by the Commission, and it was proposed to stop part of the AI Act, which governs AI in Europe, coming into effect, and that's the high risk part of some areas where AI is embedded in areas that where it poses a particular risk to people or to society, like education, banking, areas like that. So that's the origin of it, and then the Parliament, and in fairness, the member states also decided that we should look at the issue of nudification, because it was an issue that had become quite controversial. The basically taking somebody's image and manipulating it to take their clothes off and doing it without their consent, and that's the key part of it. This is done without somebody's consent.
You've described these negotiations as intensive. Can you explain that to us? Was there general uniformity of opinion on this, or was there some pushback?
Well, there was quite a bit of pushback on aspects of it, fairly technical aspects about some areas being taken out of the remit, in particular machinery. The German government, or at least the CDU component of the German government, became, I suppose, the focus of a very strong push to remove the machinery, even where AI is embedded in machinery, to remove that from the ambit of the AI Act. So it became, as time went on, it became increasingly politicized, and almost became, I suppose, a symbol of the power, the limitations of the power of the new German Chancellor. So that removing the machinery directive was incorporated in the Act finally. It was a key sticking point in negotiations that took place for over 13 hours in Strasbourg last week, and this week the meeting was reconvened at quite short notice. Actually, it was probably reconvened more quickly than might have been anticipated, but it had become, I suppose, increasingly a political priority of the Commission and of some member states.
Has there been much engagement with the applications or the companies involved in nudification, or where nudification was taking place? And do you imagine that there will be any difficulty in getting these companies to comply?
I mean, most companies, in particular big companies, and I mean, some of the providers, the more controversial providers, were very big operators. Apply the law. I mean, if you don't have a choice about it. I mean, there's a potential to be fined, and fined very heavily for not applying the law as regards contact with them. I didn't have contact with Grok, which is one of those that provided nudification, but there are many others, and there are many others that predated it and provide far more extreme imagery than Grok allows. I've had contact with them because of my AI role, but not with regard to this particular piece of legislation. And since I became involved in this legislation, I haven't had contact with them. But I expect to have contact with them again in the relatively near future about this and other matters. I mean, this is very far from their only involvement in AI. I mean, they're a big company with AI component, obviously X, which is a huge social media platform, and they are one of the major actors on the technology and digital scene in Europe and across the world.
And on that, we understand that this deal has a stop-the-clock compliance mechanism which allows companies additional time to meet their obligations. So it's not as if undue pressure is being put on these companies to implement the required measures. There's a bit of a grace period.
Well, there is, but that's with regard to sort of where AI is embedded in other areas, like in, as I say, education, banking, medical devices, in vitro devices, aviation, radio equipment, which cover TVs, etc. So I mean that grace period applies to that, but not kind of to the social media aspect of it, which is it's what most people's understanding of AI would be, sort of ChatGPT or Grok or Claude or any of these AIs, which are large language models that would be many people's, or at least ordinary people's interaction with AI, that grace period doesn't apply to them. The ban, also, I suppose, when the ban would come into effect was one of the items for discussion, debate, and dispute, and it will come into effect by the end of the year, on the 2nd of December. It will come into effect. The ban on notification apps, that is. But I mean, there are already a number of prohibited practices, like using AI to manipulate somebody without their knowledge, or profiling, and including emotional recognition in the workplace and in educational settings, etc. So there are a number of practices that are prohibited, that are already prohibited, and there are other parts of the Act when it comes to these large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, etc., that the Commission has the power to enforce with investigations, fines, etc., from the 2nd of August of this year.